Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Living Astrology with Janet. It's time to grab your cup of coffee or your tea, sit back and relax while we chat about what is happening in the stars above for us for the week. It's Monday. Happy Moon Day, everybody. Today, we are going to be chatting about the Mars ingress into Libra, always a fun one, and then our week ahead in terms of human design and through the gene keys as well. And then I'm going to share something of a sneak peek of something coming in the end of August, beginning, actually September 9th through November 9th is the exact of a Pluto out of bounds and how that will impact us for the next 15 years. More than that, 10 years. 20, 25 to 35. Yeah, so that's 10 years. Okay, so good morning to everybody who's checking in. I hope everybody had a great weekend. I swear they go by so fast. And then I look back and go, what did I do? I don't know. I had some downtime, I guess. Sounds like anyway. So hopefully whatever it is you did this weekend, it was an awesome weekend for you. So, as I said, we're going to be talking about several different things that are happening this week. Again, we have a fairly quiet week. It's like there's this big background thing that's going on, and we're going to talk some more about that. But that kite configuration is almost like sucking the energy out of the atmosphere and imprinting us, laying this kite down on top of us. And there's not much room then for many other things to go on. So, yet before this kite configuration can become exact, we have to wait for Mars to get into Libra. Now it's out of sign into that configuration at the moment, which means it's not as powerful. It's building energy. So we'll talk about that a little bit more. If you were listening to my show on Wednesday last week when Tam and I broke down August, you'll have heard a lot about this already. So it'll be for you guys to ask questions about that as you've had time to really sit and think about it. But let's start with the new Human Design Week, because the new week is an interesting one in the grand scheme of things. With Mars moving into Libra, a sign known for diplomacy and tact and balance and justice and equality, it's an interesting thing to see the sun move into a gate in your human design called collaboration. And at the same time, the Earth move into the gate 13, a gate that we think of as the narrative. What is it that we're speaking about? But also, we think of that gate as the listener. So, listening as a part of speaking, as a part of interaction with others. A part of collaboration would mean that we would need to listen to what it is that is being shared to us by others. And then others also have the invite to listen to us as we share our viewpoints on all of this. So let's start there. I'm going to share my screen so that you guys can see where in your human design chart this is happening. There it is. Okay, perfect. So as you can see, it is the identity center that is being connected to by the sun and the earth this week. Both the gates 7 and 13 lie on the identity center, which is sort of also named the magnetic monopole, meaning a word from magnetism, the monopole, meaning it only has one direction, and that direction is to attract to you. And it is also the center that is the center for love, direction, identity. So the who I am lives here. It's the seat of the soul that is in this center. So we have a huge sort of spiritual connotation going on this week with these energies of collaboration and listening. So the role of the self in interaction here, I guess, is another way that we could look at these two energies. While the earth moves into 13, the listener, it's the keeper of the narrative. So the narrative, the story. Remember last week when the sun was in 33 And we talked about the 33 being the one that tells these stories, that holds this history and shares the history with people, and how that story is colored by our emotions, by our experience, by our consciousness, our awareness of the meaning of the story, right? So everybody has a story, and we tell that story, and it has meaning for us, but it also colors then as we tell others that story, it impacts others. It colors their perception of the story, and how important it was then to keep that story clean. Well, now we have the earth at the other side, the gate 13, which is where the narrative really hits home. So, where we're really tapping in and listening deeply to what that story is, and kind of changing the story as we need to, right? Upgrading it, elevating its consciousness. Now, the gate 7, then both of these gates, by the way, they have this sort of leadership energy associated with them, especially the 7. The 7 seems to be, well, it's the opposite of the gate 31, which is the gate of the leader, but the leader in action is collaborative, right? Not authoritarian, not dictator like. And so we see that the actual human design template is set up for collaboration, not for top down hierarchy, right? Not for kingship, dictatorship, authoritarianism. That those are all not part of the evolution of humanity. So, interestingly enough, we come today then to the sun at the gate 7, which is the energy of the democratic leader in action, right? Not the one who demands control, not the one who earns trust, but I mean, instead, the one who earns trust by listening or by coordinating and guiding from within the group. Sometimes we call the gate 7 the gate of the chief of staff, right? The person, the power behind the leader that reminds this leader about what other people are saying, or about how the leadership needs to be more collaborative. And in human design, it really governs this role of the self in interaction, right? It's about how we interact. Remember, both of those gates, both 7 and 13, they're leading up to the throat center, where our words get heard, where communication occurs, where two-sided communication occurs, where manifestation occurs, right? So this is how we orient ourselves in shared space. How do we, get ourselves heard, but also spend time, the other 50% of the time should be in listening. It is a strategic gate, and it's supportive, and it's deeply attuned to the group direction. So this isn't ego-driven leadership. It's leadership that's rooted in alignment and integrity. Think about that in the face of the leaders that we have today around the world, not just here in the US, but around the world. And the impact of elevating a leader with integrity and non ego driven leadership. What would that look like? How would that feel for all of us? Now, in the shadow of this gate 7, it's division. And it reveals how easily we fracture when we forget we're co creating this experience on the planet. So, when we step into the gift of guidance, which these are Gene Keys words now, then we begin to move as a unified field, not as fragmented egos, right? The new leaders will not stand above, they will stand among. They stand among us, right? Now let's talk about gate 13, because gate 13 is this narrative. It's also located on the identity center. Its shadow in the gene keys is discord, and its gift is discernment, and its siddhi or highest expression is empathy. So gate 13 is sort of the sacred archive of the personal and collective memories that we hold. It kind of holds the stories of the past, not to trap us in nostalgia or in victimhood, which is an easy trap to fall into, especially these days, as some of the verbiage that we hear is about making something great again, going backward to a time when things were better. Well, none of that is ever really very positive. We can look backwards, yes, but we can never go backwards, right? Time does not flow backwards. And the purpose of looking back would be to distill wisdom to shape a better future, right? Not to live in the past. So in human design, the gate 13 is also called the gate of the listener. And it teaches that transformation begins not with talking, but with witnessing. When we truly listen to others and when we listen to the history of what has come before and to the body, right, to the physical body, we begin to understand what wants to evolve, what is trying to come out, what is trying to be birthed. And in its shadow, discord arises when we refuse to hear what's been silenced. But the gift of discernment reminds us to listen without absorbing. Just listen, right? Just listening. And the city of empathy teaches us to stand in the truth, but without judgment. So it's a very interesting pairing this week, especially in light of Mars moving into Libra and what that may bring for all of us. So together, the gate 7 and the gate 13, right here on the Human Design Identity Center, or G Center, sometimes it's called, um, is about collaborative leadership that's rooted in collective wisdom. It asks us if we're being guided by ego or from alignment. And it also asks us, are we listening to respond or to truly hear? Because sometimes we're listening and while we're listening, we're not really listening because we're formulating a plan of what it is that we're going to say in response to what we're hearing. That's not true listening. We're not really hearing anything. Okay. So, can you hold the weight of the past while still moving toward the future? That these are conundrums almost, right, for us because, on one hand, we have Jupiter in Cancer, which is also a nostalgic sort of feeling, looking to the past. Now we have these two gates in human design that are having us look at the past, and the Sun at the very in Leo at this moment, also trying to build itself up to see, also into the past, but how that plays out in the future. And with Mars moving into Libra this week, it's a perfect cosmic echo that we're seeing between the human design astrology and the Western or traditional astrology. So leadership is now relational. It's a relationship that's established. It's responsive. It's not reactive. And it's also responsible. Responsible leadership is not ego driven. And our personal influence grows when it emerges from deep within us, from a truth deeper within us, right? Listening and when we have shared values and not shouting louder. It's not about who has the loudest voice. Although sometimes that happens, right? We can see that in all different kinds of institutions and so forth. Now, if we look at this from the perspective of your own human design, take a look at your identity center, the central piece. The center itself is the center, as I said, for love and direction. It's either going to be colored in, and whatever color it is, if it's color, you have it defined, and it means you broadcast an identity. You know who you are, right? Even though you might question your purpose or your life path, or is this who I am? You do know who you are, right? If this is white in your chart, then you have an open identity center. And an open identity center person is sort of like a chameleon. They're very good at trying on others' identities. And as they do that, they tap into that person's truth, to that person's problems, to that person's inner self, because it's almost as if they are that. But you are not that, right? So open identity, people can get lost in the identity of the people around them who are broadcasting identities, right? So there's about 50% of the population with an identity broadcast, meaning it's defined and it's broadcasting, or the other 50% are open. So chances are in your family or in your town or community that you're a part of, half of you are like this, where you're open and you're trying on identities. But the wisdom gaining aspect of all of this for you is that you're learning to be wise about people. You know people because when you get around people, it's like you are them, right? But you have to remember that you aren't them. So it can be very much for people with the open identity center that they feel sometimes like when they separate from someone, like they've lost their identity. Because if they weren't wise to the fact that they have an open identity, they were actually in the other person's identity. And now they feel lost. Now they feel confused. Now they don't know who they are or what they're here to do. And here's the other thing about having an open identity center: you're here to do and be a lot of different things in this life, not just one. Right? You have no one set identity. It's always going to be about who you are. But what you can do with that is amazing, because when you're around people and opportunities or in places that make you feel good, you know you're in the right place. When you get around people that don't make you feel good, or places that don't make you feel good, or jobs or opportunities that just don't feel good, then that is not the right set of people, the right building, the right opportunity for you. It's learning to trust that. And lastly, as an open identity center, you might not notice how lovable you are. You might not see that or feel that. Right? And again, it goes to, who are you around? Are they showing you how lovable you are? Right? Are they showing you that you are worthy? Because worthiness isn't about what you do or what you've earned, it's about who you are intrinsically, right? All human life is valuable. All life is valuable. You need do nothing to be valuable or to be made to seem like you have more value, right? Something that the defined identity center knows about. Now, for some of you, you may have the throat defined and you have hanging gates perhaps here, maybe the 31 or the 33. And now with the sun and the earth at these 7 and the 13, you've connected a channel. And now you have, for at least the from August 5th through the 10th, you have a defined channel from the throat center to the identity center. So here, this identity emerges, right? This need to be in a leadership position or to lead from the heart really becomes a part of your experience. Now, for those of you who don't have the 31 or the 33 defined at all, then these gates become hanging, right? They'll be hanging for everybody, whether that's on an open identity center or on a defined identity center. And the hanging gates are just ripe to connect with others. So these gates may play out in maybe leadership tugs of war, right? Or you may feel like you're being asked to step up as a leader, and a part of that is going to be about how well do you listen, right? Are you listening, or are you listening while forming a response to what you're hearing, or are you truly listening and then responding once that person has completed their thoughts, their talk, right? So it's an interesting week all the way around. Remember, this center is above all about love. Love, right? And how every human being is worthy of love. All life is worthy of love and of being loved. All right. Hopefully everybody understands that. Let's take a look back over here and say good morning to people that are popping in. Oh, move. There we go. So I see Tom. Hello to you. Julie, good morning. Christine, good morning. Patty, hello. Adjusting the mic was good. Yeah, I forgot to put it up to my mouth. Um, mostly because I was trying to drink my coffee and I have to move the mic to do so, and I totally forgot. Anyway, thank you. Tom, natal moon 13, personality, natal Mars 7. So you are already, and I believe you have an open identity center too, Tom, but yes, I'm almost positive you do. So now you have, these 2 gates that are really helping you hopefully, because I think you have a defined no, you have an open throat as well. So helping you to speak in the right way at the right time with the right people, but also listening deeply when others are speaking so that you get a true understanding of what there is to be said. And with the natal moon at 13, um, I would check my story. Is the story? So we all have stories, right? And then check the story, right? Are you keeping the same narrative going, or have you updated your narrative, right? The story that you're telling yourself or telling others even about yourself. All great questions. Kamal, good morning to you. Asa, good morning to you. Amanda J, good morning. Good morning to J Lo and um, Libra ship. Yep, everybody's in their Libra ship, coming into their Libra ship this week. Christine Buckingham, is that the same with both open throat and identity and gate 33 and 34? Yeah, so yeah, the 33. Do you have the gate 33 defined? I think you said Pluto in Virgo. Yeah, so now you're going to have Pluto at the gate 33, and it's going to join up with the Earth at the gate 13. So now you're completing this whole historian channel in your human design for, the 5 days from the 5th to the 10th. And what stories are you telling, right? It's your opportunity to tell stories, historical, and how, we've learned from the past, how you've learned from the past as you're sharing with your kids or your friends or your other family members about something. Keep that in mind, right? Your experiences have informed your words. And i- is that story that you're passing on important? Yes. But is it important to share all the ugliness, the nastiness of it? I don't know. The ending, for sure, needs to be positive and uplifting, right? Otherwise, you bring down the energy for those people instead of uplifting people. I think that's the purpose of story, right? To teach us, right? In the ages past, culture sat around the fire at night before we had devices, that we could connect to. They would sit around the fire perhaps and share stories of the day. They would be teaching moments to share with the younger people the stories of the past as a way to teach them what to do, what to be, how to be, right, and that type of thing. And so now we are going to have this great opportunity to share those stories in this way. But the problem today is, especially as you consume the media, is the story true? Is it real? Right? I don't know. I doubt it, right? I doubt the things that I see. So I have to do more of my due diligence. We all do, in tracking down the veracity of a story before we share it. It's incumbent upon you to do that, lest you spread panic about something, right? Or misinformation. And that becomes very tricky today with AI and with I was looking at something. It said watch the Russian coast during the earthquake or something, during the 8.8 earthquake. And what it's showing me in the picture are palm trees swaying. And I went, wait a minute, the Russian coast that would have been impacted by that tsunami swaying with palm trees? Not likely, right? It was likely more about some other coast that got hit and maybe even some other tsunami. Not, and I was like, okay, AI blew it, right? AI blew it there. But it got my attention, and that's what my granddaughter's like, Grandma, that's called clickbait. You fell for it. You clicked on the story, and people get paid by the click. So they don't care if it's true or not. They're just waiting for the click. right? And the more clicks, the more money. I don't know how that works because I don't get money on clicks, but whatever, right? They do. So funny, right? And it was definitely so much AI. So we have to be careful even on what we click on, lest we be supporting that kind of trash, right? It's really kind of crazy these days. But I wanted to also share something else this morning that I noticed, and I was going to go back and get the story, and I didn't get to before I started the show this morning. I noticed a story that came in. Remember, for those of you who attended the Uranus and Gemini webinar that we did last week before last, we were talking about new forms of education, right? Because right now, books are being banned, curriculums being banned in certain schools in certain states around the country. Certainly not in all schools and certainly not in all states, but you know where the ones are that I'm talking about. The conservative South wanting to ban books about, DEI and or diversity education and curriculum about that and what have you. So a group of people got together, parents, and they created an educational curriculum that includes that inclusivity, right? That diversity education that they can, and the books that have been banned in, say, the public schools that are readily available either online or in libraries to teach their children about diversity and education and inclusivity and tolerance and all of those things. So, and the indeed, Christine, the factual history and factual science that they're trying to obliterate. So it just is, it speaks to a change in how we also educate our children, right? When we can, at some point, the public education system is going to recover from this period of time where all this BS has been happening. It will recover. It will it will be elevated like it's never been elevated before. It's going to be probably 10 years or so before we get there, though. So in the meantime, let's not forget the truth. Let's teach our children the truth. Let's teach our college students the truth, right? Even if they have to consume that from, something non-school, right? Something from maybe parents or a curriculum that you can, purchase separately or tap into separately. It's just interesting to watch all this happen. It's like we're living astrology, right? We get to see it happen. Yes, I know. Project 2025 seeks to indoctrinate our children and in a fascist way of being, in an authoritarian system. And as I've told you over and over, we can see in our human design that is not who we are designed to be. So it won't last. It can't last. Even if it took hold for a year or 2 years, it can't last, right? As soon as we dump Trump, we are away from all of that and we are hopefully clearing ourselves of that. It may take more time than that though, right? When he gets out of office, we have the potential for others with that same Project 2025 idea in mind about indoctrinating our children. They may still be there. But as I'm going to share with you here a little bit in the broadcast, a little later here in the broadcast this morning, big changes are on the horizon, but it takes time. All right, let's go. And I don't mean to offend anybody who, loves Trump. I just don't know who you are out there, but it's okay, right? I can have my opinion, you can have yours. It's okay. But the changes that are being taking place right now are not in alignment with who we are as people, as who we are as humans. And so there are things that won't stand the test of time. Okay. And that's okay to know that, right? Know that. So Mars in Libra this week, August 6th, we have, it's Wednesday, Mars moving into the sign of the warrior of diplomacy. Mars, the warrior god, right? I showed this great picture during the I don't know if I have it still. Let's see if it's on my desktop image file because I shared it because it was one of my favorites. Let's see, Mars. No. Darn it. I don't remember what I called it. Mars. Oh, maybe it's in my downloads. Hold on. Mars in Libra. Here we go. Mars looking out of place. This is what I named it. So here we have Mars in Libra, right? The warrior in the middle of a party or a get together where he's looking around going, "What in the you know what? How did I get here?" Like, how does a warrior interact with peaceable people? Right? That's Libra, right? Libra, the tact and the diplomacy, the balancing and harmonizing, equality, and all of these characteristics that, they're not anti Mars, but Mars is like headstrong and, do it first and think later. While Libra is really much this, you know, considering everything. So we have the warrior in the Hall of Mirrors, because I like to think of Libra, for example, as this faceted diamond where they can see so many different sides. And if you turn it this way, then it's like this. And if you look at it this way, then it's like this. And how do you how do you balance all of these different phases and these different faces of a subject, right? Well, Mars doesn't have patience. He has no patience with that kind of stuff. He's like, let's just do it. Let's just move ahead. So he's the planet of action and assertion and desire. And when he steps into Libra, the sign of balance and fairness and justice and relationship and balance, equal, time for everybody, he's in his detriment. He is in the sign that is opposing his natural rulership, which is Aries, and Libra is opposing Aries. So this doesn't mean he's weak. It just means that Mars must operate outside of his comfort zone. There's a lot of growth for Martian energies in Libra because he has to act completely differently. Rather than charging forward headstrong with certainty, Mars in Libra has to stop and consider, has to reflect, and maybe negotiate before he takes action. He can't just barrel his way through. And this is where the tension lies, because the challenge of Mars in Libra is that Mars wants to act and Libra wants to weigh all of the sides, right? Or at least both sides. And Mars wants to confront. Libra wants to compromise. Mars wants to win. Libra wants everyone to walk away whole, right? I mean, Libra, right? Balance. And this can lead to frustration for you personally, right? We're in the Libran part of your chart. So if you pull out your astrology chart and you look to where Libra is, that is the house that Mars will be moving through and where compromise, negotiation, diplomacy, and tact are needed, but there is confrontation and conflict there as well because of Mars, right? So the frustration or hesitation, passive aggression, all of that behavior is action that's needed, but clarity on what action is needed is elusive. Like, what do I do? Who do I who do I talk to? Where do I go? It's like trying to drive with one foot on the gas and the other foot on the brake, right? You're not going anywhere fast. So you can see where the frustration builds up. But when we integrate Mars in Libra, there are gifts for us. It's not all dreadful news, right? There's a peaceful warrior who stands up for fairness without creating more conflict. There's a strategic diplomat who knows when to act and how to bring others with them, right? How to collaborate. Thank God the sun is in collaboration, right? A relation a relational or relationship oriented leader who moves forward with cooperation, not domination. So this Mars doesn't just fight for himself, he really is fighting for justice. And he seeks to align willpower with shared values that can take the collective action to another level, that can uphold the integrity of all involved in decision making. Now, do I think that's going to be easy? No, I don't think so. Not for some. For some people, Likely Libras, even you may feel conflicted the most, right, in your life. The air signs themselves are thinkers. So Libra, Aquarius, Gemini, thinking too much, right? And not enough action. But then with Mars and Libra, not knowing which of those thinking things are the ones you take action on. So it can create some frustration for the air signs. Now, from August 6th, when he moves into Aries, when he moves into Libra until the 15th, pretty much, Mars is in an opposition to Saturn and Neptune, who are in Aries, right? So we have this opposition pulling in different directions, right? Having to somehow come into balance or harmony. And Mars kicks off this Libran journey by opposing those two heavy hitters. Saturn and Neptune are both, collective, transpersonal planets. They are showing us something going on in society, in the culture, in humanity, in the consciousness of the world. And they're both in very early Aries, 1 degree, essentially. Saturn in Aries is bringing pressure to take responsibility for your independence, for your leadership, and your inner authority. And Neptune in Aries dissolves false identities, right? That's taking away what's false and asking you to act with spiritual integrity. So it's like Neptune taking off these masks from people and showing us the truth of who they are, showing you the truth of who you are. And when Mars opposes both, well, it can feel like paralysis by principle, where you're not knowing how to act or what action to take, but it has to align with your higher purpose, and that could take some time for us to consider what is my higher purpose here. There's confusion about direction or delays even that reveal your impatience, where you just go, I got to take action. I got to go. I got to do. Be patient. And it might be a test of maturity versus martyrdom. Will you react emotionally or respond from your center, right? From your inner self. So, emotional maturity. And this transit demands discernment. The week de- demands it, right? With 7 and gate 13 both in play. And, discernment instead of rushing headlong into something or opposite of that, withdrawing completely from taking any kind of action, right? There's two extremes here. And then what does right action look like when justice and compassion walk hand in hand, when they are pals, right? When they're compatriots instead of opposition points from one another. So that'll be really the breadth of now, even until the 15th or so of the month, when Mars moves far enough out of orb. Let's see, on the 15th, I believe he's at 10 degrees. And to me, that's just putting, we've had the experience and he's just put himself a little far out of that opposition. Now, from August 16th until the 18th, Mars opposes Ceres in um, in Aries. Like, remember I said Saturn, Neptune in early degrees, Ceres in the mid degrees, and then Eris and Chiron in later degrees. But all those degrees are going to be hit at some point in the next month and a half by Mars. So Ceres represents nurturing. And in some respects, she also represents loss. What have we lost? And there can be grief engaged in this as well. And she also represents the cycles of life and the cycles of death, right? The whole idea of life and death and rebirth. And Mars opposing her brings some tension to the surface around self preservation and care for others. She's a nurturer. And this can show up as a clash between your personal desires and caretaking roles, like putting yourself between what I need versus what someone else needs of me. And maybe power struggles around emotional labor or codependency where emotion is just, roiling. Maybe burnout from giving too much or not giving enough, right? Sitting back too long. So the opportunity for us during that window, 16th through the 18th, is really to use this to reclaim your energy and tend to your own needs without guilt. Peace begins when you really feel nourished. enough to stop fighting flow of the energy, stop fighting the need you have for rest or to take care of yourself. Take the opportunity to take care of you. And then as we get to the end of August and into early September, Mars will square Jupiter in Cancer. I don't think this ever gets to be exact, but it does get close. And the square stirs ambition for everybody wanting to get something done, ambition to move forward, the drive, right, to do something. And it may also inflate ego or exaggerate needs. We may see conflated egos in the people outside of us. We may also feel that, ego inflation within us. Jupiter in Cancer wants to protect what matters, sometimes to a fault. And Mars in Libra seeks external balance, but may give away too much to keep the peace. So we have potential triggers, overreaching in our relationships, in our contracts with others, getting too caught up in what we think others want from us. Maybe some defensive emotional reactions that are disguised as moral superiority. Take that one. Maybe internal pressure to do the right thing, even if it means sacrificing your truth. Never sacrifice your truth. So, this is a test this time at the end of the month and into early September that's really a test of integrity in action. And will you take the path of least resistance or the one that builds real harmony, real peace, right? Real relationship? Now, at the end, or from mid-September to the end of September, September 23rd, Mars moves out of Libra, so till September 22nd, Mars will oppose Eris and Chiron in Aries. And this is a potent emotional climax to the Mars in Libra journey, where Eris, the disruptor, right, is bringing up suppressed rage, rejection, all the ugly things that we've squelched or kept, been keeping down, she brings it up. And then Chiron, the wounded healer, exposes the identity wounds that you have and the relational trauma even around your relationship with others. And Mars opposing both of these pieces is a call to courage, to step up, to face, exclusion, to face injustice without becoming what you oppose, right? Not becoming it, but shining the spotlight on it. Maybe to heal how you respond to conflict, or especially when you feel unseen or misunderstood or like you're ignored, right? Or marginalized. Really take a look at that. And how do you respond to that? How do you heal that? And this is where Mars in Libra really shines, right? This is the using the sword of truth, but without severing the connection between you and your people, right? Your family or your friends or your colleagues. All right. The biggest news of this whole time is definitely the kite configuration that will be activated from literally August 1st, because at the end of Mars's transit through Virgo, he's aspecting this kite. But as we get to August 6th for sure and on through the 15th, we have this very powerful kite configuration in the sky that's, laying down its energy onto us here in the earth. And Mars becomes the activating force, the catalyst, the catalyzer of this rare but powerful kite. Mars in Libra, the tail of the kite is actually sparking this movement. He's, holding the strength of the spine here. He's actually opposing Saturn and Neptune, that separates the grand trine aspect of this into two halves. So there's something of a blocking pattern here. Pluto in Aquarius is part of this, revolutionizing collective power and systems. And Uranus and Gemini shaking up communication. They're trying one another. Pluto and Uranus, they're holding the crossbar of the kite. And shaking up media, shaking up ideas. And then Saturn and Neptune that, are in the mix as well, that is forming this kite that's anchored in air and fire. What do we know about air and fire? Right? They are complementary in that air fans the flames of fire, right? The desire, The mind can inflame the emotions or the desire or the fire. So with Mars driving this transformation, we have this rare portal of time for intentional cooperative momentum, but it's not passive. Mars has to ignite it, right? We have to choose it. It's not going to just happen because it's there. And this is the key to any kite or any grand trine that you have in your chart, any trine at all. You have to do something with it. You can't just sit back and wait for it to happen. It just doesn't work that way. So Mars igniting, the ignition switch, the key to starting some form of action that's going to lead us to, a more equitable world. I can't even imagine what that might be, but it will be big, right? It will be big. Now, Pluto in this mix provides this evolutionary depth, right? Burning the old system down with purpose. That don't work. Let's burn it down. That isn't going to stand the test of time. It's gone. And then Uranus in Gemini providing insight and innovation, the potential to see from above, right? To see something better, to think differently, to communicate clearly. Saturn and Neptune providing both structure and vision, right? Saturn structure, Neptune vision, and dreaming something that's worth building. What's worth this agonizing time, going through this agonizing time that is building for the future? And Mars, the catalyst, right? Asking, will you act from dominance and fear or from a vision of shared power? Which way? Which way are you going to take action on? So here we go. The collective message of Mars in Libra over the course of this time is the world doesn't need more battles for control. We just don't need that. It's already there. It needs collaborative warriors. It needs visionary builders, and it needs diplomatic disruptors, people who use their voice positively and for the good. The Mars transit and the kite configuration both remind us that we don't need to shout to be heard, that you just need to speak truth from your center, from the center of your being, from who you are. And there is some power here. So as we close out today, I want to talk about, first of all, let me look and see if you guys have questions. The Willow Rose, good morning to you. And Patty, I really wish that Project 2025 was fake news. Unfortunately, it's quite real, and people out there are trying to enact that project right now. What we need to do is recognize what's happening and not allow it to take place. We have to stand up and say, no, enough is enough. Christine, the Viking game was over and he forgot to change into his street clothes. Or did he just like time travel into downtown, New York City or LA, into the middle of this street party and go, oh my God, what happened? How did I get here? Right? The idea being the warrior plopped down into nice, polite society where people are collaborating and they're co-creating and having a cooperative. And here he is, like ready to fight. I should have put a sword in his hand. That would have been even funnier. The Viking is the only thing not AI. It's all AI, Tom. Come on. Amanda J. In fact, what I did is I went into Canva and I said to Canva, put a Martian figure in the middle of a party. And that's what it created for me. Amanda J. Libra is my 6th house with Pluto and Uranus there. So something to do with health and well-being, Amanda, or your work environment. Also, that is a house of service. So it is about what am I giving back? Where's my heart? Where are my gifts and my talents? And how am I sharing those? Or am I withdrawing and not sharing those things with people, with others? J-Lo, my PC turned off. Oh my goodness, that's funny. Maybe was doing an update. So I don't see any questions. If you have questions, please feel free to go ahead and put those in there. But what I want to talk about now is something that is huge. It is huge. And yet no one is hardly talking about it yet, and that's okay because I can talk about it now. And that is, and you've heard me probably bring this up, and is that next month, starting actually, as I looked this up, I saw that it's already activating, and that is Pluto moving into a declination that puts him out of bounds. Now, Pluto has a regular cycle of this, right? Where he's out of bounds and then he's way high south north of in declination, then he comes down and he's back to normal, and then he goes down below south of the declination and then up again and down again, and this is over this course of time, right? Long periods of time. And I think I shared with you this book, Persephone's Revolution, written by Rosie Finn. If you can, read this book, you will totally get what I'm talking about, but it's dense in history as she proves her point about Pluto's strength in this out of bounds nature of himself. Now, out of bounds, any planet that goes beyond 23 degrees 44 minutes of the sun, that's the furthest that the sun's declination is. If a planet goes beyond that, it's out of bounds and it becomes more extreme in its expression. It has more punch, has more power, right? It pushes us. And at least once or twice a month, sometimes the moon is out of bounds and things are more emotional, right? We get over the top emotions. When Pluto goes out of bounds, distinctly in history, we go through these pinnacles of time. And the time that we're about to go in is known as reform. It's the time where the old structures fail and fall, and we are being reformed, right? Restructured, rebuilt, kind of, some new kind of thing coming together. Now, this is quietly unfolding already in the sky above us, but it is actually exact from September 9th to November 9th of this year. But every year, it comes into that exactness around the time period of August to November. So for the next 10 years, this is unfolding from 2025 to 2035. Expect Pluto to go out of bounds and for us to grow in sort of this leap of, or to see some sort of death, rebirth, some kind of power struggle or transformation occur in our world. And this is, a time that is, repeatable. Like we could take this time and we could go back and to the last time that Pluto was south of the declination in the same reform capacity, and we could see some of the big things that happened. And we are going to talk more about this. So today I'm just skimming this for you so you have an awareness of why it is I'm going to be bringing up this whole story of Pluto over the next couple of weeks. And this is literally him stepping out of bounds, outside the influence of the sun, right? The sun no longer being the influence here, but Pluto. And this isn't just a celestial detour where he's going to be, done and gone and out of our hair for a while. It's the final southern out of bounds cycle that Pluto will have in all of human history. It's the last time that Pluto will go anywhere below declination, where the next 3,000 years at least, right? Our ephemeres don't go beyond 3,000 years. There is not another time in history that we'll see this happening. So, can you imagine the impact, the import of the time that we are going through in these next 10 years? And it's like this cosmic exhale from the underworld, dispelling the shadows, rising in truth, collapsing false authority, reckoning, a revolution. And for those who are listening, a resurrection of sorts, right? For those of you who are getting this, this is this resurrection time. I'm calling this next chapter the Phoenix of Reform because that to me is the perfect model, right? The old dying away, and out of the ashes, the new is born. And it's not just about collective change either. It's much bigger than that. It's personal, it's spiritual, it's ancestral. It's a a once in an evolutionary epic period, right? An epoch, right? It's a once in an epoch type of thing. And later this week, I'm going to start releasing in installments this idea of Pluto as the phoenix, and diving deep into what this out of bounds cycle really means for us personally, but collectively, and how do we rise from the ashes of this civilization that we're in with sacred purpose, right? Some of this is going to be very difficult because the underworld is stirring. It has been, honestly, right? What we see outside of us right now in our outer world, through earth destruction, through the earth's tsunamis, earthquakes, fires, floods, all of that is earth reflecting the shadows that are coming up for us to let go of, for us to move through. What we see in the people in our outer world, right? The ones that we see are the shadows that have been projected outward onto them, right? So even though, Trump is a person I don't necessarily enjoy, when I think about what his role is, he's doing a job well done, right? Because he is reflecting back to us all of our shadows, right? Our shadows, the shadow evils, if you will, the shadows that we have been not really looking at, right? So it is a very, final countdown comes to mind. Indeed. That's great. That is really good. It is a final countdown. It's going to take time for it to unfold. And just know that from now on, for until 2035, so 10 years from now, we have a period of time every August, September, October, November, December, where we are intensely dealing with this shadow coming up, being released, being burned away so that something new can come up. And at the end of this 2035, what do we have? I mean, is it a new golden age? Is it a new time period where we've come through all the shadows we've created, and that we've burned through them, and that somehow we can move ahead to that Pluto and Aquarius goal of humanity being, the most important, the collaboration, the cooperation, the peace and harmony that we've been looking for? I don't know. It's distinctly possible, but there hasn't been another time in history when we have faced this time period like this, because all of human history has been full of all of the Pluto above in the northern declination creating revolution, and in the southern declination creating reform, and the spaces in between that, bring all of these, crazy historical events. So I don't know. I can surmise, right? But to me, it is something I find very fascinating. I almost feel like I could live through some of the things that I don't like in this outer world, because I see how it's bringing up the shadow for us to solve, right? For us to come to peace with internally. All right. That is it for me, guys. I'm sorry if I'm going to cut this off, but I have to get going this morning, and be watching for more information about this. And on Friday, we'll talk some more about this um, impending out of bounds and the astrology for the weekend. All right, everybody, take care. Bye for now.